Hi, this is homework help for week 15, April 23rd. I'm going to start with factored form part B right here because a lot of students were asking me about this one. We've seen before with the parentheses that we can set the whole thing equal to 0. And by zero product property, each factor would have to be equal to 0 to make the whole thing multiply to equal 0. So what you can do is you can set this factor, x plus 2, equal to 0, and solve for x. So subtract 2 each side. And the answer is x is negative 2. What this means is the function is 0, or the y value is 0 when x is negative 2. And you can plot that as an x-intercept. But students didn't really know what to do with this other x out here. This is another factor. It is being multiplied. It just doesn't have any number that goes with it. So by zero product property, you can set this factor equal to 0 as well. But it's already solved. The value is 0, so you can just plot it right away. In fact, it's equivalent to a factor with parentheses. That would be like x minus 0. Same thing. So here we have our two x-intercepts. What we need to do to graph this completely is find the axis of symmetry, which is right in between the two. So just put a dotted line right there. You don't have to do any work. You just know it's right in between 0 and negative 2. So right at negative 1. We would know that the vertex is going to be on that line somewhere. We know that the x value of this line is negative 1. And it asks us down here, axis of symmetry is where? And its x is negative 1. So what do we do next? Plug in that x value to find the y value of the vertex. So back to the original equation, we're going to just plug in, I'll just put it up here somewhere. So it's negative 1 for x times negative 1 plus 2. In this case, it doesn't equal 0. In this case, we're just trying to find out what does that equal. So negative 1 times positive 1 equals negative 1. So here we can plot that y value right here at negative 1. Once we have those 3 points, that's sufficient to draw your parabola. It also asked us the actual coordinates of the vertex. We knew that the x is negative 1. It's always the same as the axis of symmetry, and we found that the y value was also negative 1. Moving on, let's take a look at the back side because vertex form is newer this week. So something to know is the general form for vertex form. We have an a value out front. It's the coefficient you see. And as the number gets higher, then the parabola is going to get skinnier, kind of like going up faster, like a faster slope. And as a is a lower number, like a fraction, less than 1, then the parabola is going to get wider. The main thing we focus on in this class, though, is that if the a value is negative, that parabola is going to flip. It's going to open downward. So what I mean by that, flip if negative, it's going to look like this instead of what I just drew on the first page. We have an h value that moves it left and right, and we have the k value which moves it up and down. The tricky part is that the h, it's always minus h. So you have to think it's the h itself is the opposite of what you see. And just be careful and know that the vertex is at h, comma, k. That's the coordinates of it. So let's take a look. We're going to look through all three of these. So part A, we have x plus 3 squared. What we can do is we could think of this in terms of what we just did on the front page in terms of intercept form. And we would have, it's really x plus 3 and 2 of them because it's squared. If we set it equal to 0, the x-intercept would have to be at negative 3. This is called a repeated root, or a place where the parabola bounces off of. And it can also be written as x minus negative 3. That looks really crazy, but double negative is equivalent to the plus sign there. And there we see it's x minus our h. So now we can see that our h is negative 3. Our vertex is at negative 3. So when it asks you where's your vertex, it's at negative 3, comma, something, right? But this is always h, comma, k. So we did our h. We know it's negative 3. Now what's the k? The k is always after the parentheses in vertex form, so I'll just show you this one again. It would be like a plus or a minus something. There's nothing there. So this one, again, it bounces right off the x-axis. It stays there, and it's not moving up or down at all. And so that value for the k is 0. That is our vertex. Our axis of symmetry is going to be right here as well. They always go together. So the x value for the axis of symmetry was -3. We still need some more points to make a parabola, so one cool pattern is that from the vertex, as long as the parabola is opening upward, and it is because the a value is just a +1, we can go up and over 1 from the vertex to get another point. This can also be reflected across that axis of symmetry. From here, we've got enough. We can just draw that parabola. Let's take a look at the next one, part B. I see more of the pieces of vertex form. So we have x minus h. The h is 1. Once you know that, if you'd like, you can just write down h as 1, or you can write it down in terms of the vertex. Remember, vertex is going to be h comma k, and we see that it's 1. The k is going to be +2. There's nothing tricky about the k. It's whatever you see. Now we can plot that 1, 2. 1, 2. That's the vertex. Remember, the axis of symmetry is here too. Now ask yourself, to be sure to look at the a value, ask yourself, does this parabola open up or down? As long as you see nothing here, or a positive number out front, then it opens upward. We can use our pattern up and over 1, each side of the axis of symmetry, or each side of the vertex there, and we've got ourselves a parabola. For part C, hopefully you notice right away there's a couple things different, but one main one is this negative out front means it's going to flip that parabola. So now it's going to be opening downward. The vertex is going to be at the maximum point. What's the h and k? It's really easy to see this whole thing right here is k. K is -3. It might be a little harder to see what is h. We're looking for x minus h. Don't get tricked. H is going to be -4. Whenever you see a plus sign, think the opposite, -4. So again, right here we have our h and k, -4, comma -3. Write it down for the vertex. The axis of symmetry is always the x value, which I forgot to fill in over here. Let's plot it and find that parabola. So -4, -3. Axis of symmetry. Remember, does it open up or down? The a value is negative, so this is going to look more like this, flipping that parabola over and opening downward. So instead of going over and up 1, go over and down 1. And draw your parabola.